Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 8 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Bergio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Bergio. Phil, welcome.
Thank you.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. There's a section there that answers questions about being a guest. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is KM Weldon. KM, welcome.
Hello.
We're glad you could join us, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to turn it over to Phil to share a classic poem for the episode. Phil?
Yeah, this is an Edgar Allan Poe poem. I was surprised how much poetry Poe had written. Everybody thinks about, okay, maybe The Raven and all his other novels, but he did write a lot of poetry. Here's one called A Dream. In visions of the dark night, I have dreamed of joy departed, but a waking dream of life and light hath left me broken-hearted. Ah, what is not a dream by day to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past? That holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a loving beam, a lonely spirit guiding. What thought that light through storm and night so trembled from afar? What could there be a more purely bright in truth's day star? Edgar Allan Poe.
All right, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I have to agree. I'm with you on that I didn't realize, or I've never really looked into how much poetry Poe has written. Obviously, I think we're all familiar with The Raven, and like you said, some of his novels. But I know I'm familiar with Annabelle Lee, but I think that's about it as far as any research I've done into Poe.
Well, now you know The Dream.
Right. KM, any comments there?
Yeah, I really actually like that poem. I feel like it's relatable. I feel like it kind of has that sense of dreaming is better than living, really. I think that can be translated throughout time, and it's kind of a timeless poem.
Definitely, yeah. From there, we're going to move on to my section of the episode. I'm going to read a poem called Treasure Without End, and I'll talk more about it at the end. Treasure Without End. I've searched in distant forests, in all the valleys far and wide. I've climbed up every hill and slope, and even combed the grassy plains. A young adult in search of hope, of treasure lost since time of youth. I seek what I have never seen, yet know in heart must still exist. They are kept secret, must be rare. My parents seldom made theirs known, but would in passing mention how they'd pick its wondrous green-hued fruit. I need to find a money tree and plant it in a yard my own, so I can pick its cherished fruit and share the bounty all around. I've looked and looked with no such luck of finding such a splendid tree. The rainbow even left my quest without a tree or gold-filled pot. Perhaps it must be grown anew, with soil blessed by tender hands, within a garden in the sun, and nurtured as it grows and blooms. My parents must have known of this, and sowed their secret garden ripe, then raised themselves a healthy tree to bear its fruit in time of need. I will continue on my quest to search for treasure without end, that's fueled by a childhood dream that thinks that money grows on trees. Matthew Bergio. So that's a poem I wrote years ago as I started my adult life, and realizing that how blessed I was as a child growing up through my young years, my teenage years. Well, I'm not going to lie, even in my adult years, as I go through things, to have parents that were always there to support me. And I never felt at need. I never felt we were poor. You know, I felt like we always had everything we needed, and my parents did a great job of providing things, despite being on a single family income and not really having that much money, as I learned later in life. So when I struggled with my own financial woes of getting started in life, you know, I realized how blessed we were for the things that my parents did to provide for us. So,
Your grandfather would always say, yeah, we're rich. We just don't have any money.
right.
It was family thing, all about family.
Yeah, so I always appreciated that. And so I wrote this poem to reflect that, you always hear about, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. And so I just kind of thought that was an interesting concept.
I really liked that one. I enjoyed it. It's another poem that's pretty relatable, this coming of age of like, where's this money tree that's been ruined? Like, how have we been getting by? And I really like the phrase that you had just said of, you're like, we're not, or we're rich, but we we just don't have any money.
Right.
Kind of realizes, there are multiple riches of life, and it does come with family, and sometimes it's in different things and things like that. So I really liked that one.
Thank you. It was something that, like I said, I don't want to say ignorance, but like, I never felt like we were at need. Like that we didn't have all the fancy things. We wore the secondhand clothing and things like that, but we always felt like we had a great childhood. So I always thought that was
Yeah, your
like
mom was good at Goodwill finding clothes for you guys.
yeah, you guys were both good at everything. So I always appreciated that. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Phil to share a poem for this episode.
This is interesting. The poem I had before I picked the Poe poem is about dreams too. It's called If I Could Sleep, Then I Would Dream. I lay in bed at night waiting for sleep to come. If I could sleep, dreams would draw and take me from this darkened room. I lay with hard and sad thoughts moving through my head. They just add to my lack of sleep and to my time awake in bed. But if I could sleep, I'd dream of happy times with the one I love who watches me from above. Dreaming of days of youth when in our prime we would love and feast and enjoy sweet wine. Those harsh bad dreams that seek to cross my head would soon be caught by the feathered web. If I could sleep, then I would dream gentle days of peace and joy. If I could sleep, then I would dream. Philip Bergio.
Thank you for sharing. I think many of us can relate about restless nights, especially when thinking about loved ones, whether with us currently or those that have passed. I like the mention there of the feathered web. I'm assuming that's a dream
That's my
catcher.
dream catcher. Yep.
Yeah, Native American catcher of bad dreams, I guess.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I was actually going to say the same thing of how I really liked how you worded it of feathered web.
Feathered web. You familiar with
It,
dream catchers?
yes, it really makes it like it brings another level of it to it, and almost that contrast as well with your poem in general of well, if I could sleep these feelings off, I would definitely be dreaming of something better, and sometimes dreaming of those loved ones can bring that peace and joy. So I really did enjoy that.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to turn it over to you, KM. You're the poet. Show us what you've got.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. My name is KM Weldon. I kind of consider myself a jack of all trades kind of gal. So I do it all from, drawing to photography, painting, and ceramics, but writing has been my roots since I was born, whether it's like personal writings or for school or for what have you. It's just always been something I've drawn back to. And so now I've entered a new phase of my life, becoming an author rather than just, writing on the side. 7 years in the making. I have my first poetry collection in my hands called Under the Influence of Gravity. Like most of my poems, it's inspired by the very spectrum of life and the element of emotions spoken through the essence of nature. That being said, I've chosen a couple poems to read for you right from the pages of my book. I have one that is definitely in the theme of, dreaming and sleeping and, kind of having those peaceful thoughts. So this poem is called Pruned. I draw baths of the past too often, smothering in the suds of nostalgia. I must admit, I have addictive tendencies, distracting myself before the world catches up with me. I'd rather soak in security and stay sequestered in my mind than face the unfamiliar future. Sometimes it feels better to be better, daydreaming until the day is over, letting anecdotes be my antidote. Eventually, the bath runs cold, and I'm pruned once I stepped out. I've chased the last of the past away. Pieces of me have hollowed into a phantom, and it haunts who I once was. K.M. Weldon.
All right, thank you.
I like that about the anecdotes being antidote. That was
That
good.
one is my favorite part. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to make the same comment. No, thank you for sharing. I like that, the idea of the distraction and that we think about, the dreaming at night as the distraction and getting away, but I like how this one focuses on the concept of the daydreaming to kind of forget the world.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I
All right.
did have another one as well.
Yeah, go for it.
This one is called Stockholm Box. Disturbed by the way we detained one another, determined to lock ourselves in, what a detriment we'd become. We were a dream before we were a delusion, derived from the need to be wanted, demanded the iron in my pulse, extracted until my blood dripped to silver. We played the cards we were dealt, but I dedicated myself to breaking free, dead set on finding my feet. Desire turned to rage, then rage turned to defeat. But daring myself to let go was a delayed death. Like a dog, I was fated to escape the leash, and the delirium made me hungry. Became driven to fight our deformities, to lick away the damages. I didn't want to be digested by you, so I devoted myself to have my turn dancing in the light and to discover my dawn. K.M. Weldon.
Let me ask you about the Stockholm box. Is that in reference to the Stockholm syndrome?
Yes.
Okay.
I like how this one starts right out the gate. I like that very first line, the disturbed by the way we detained one another, determined to lock ourselves in. I think that's a great way to set the stage for the whole poem.
Yes, that's exactly why I chose Stockholm Box as the title. What the meaning of Stockholm, that Stockholm syndrome of like kind of falling into your what is that word? I guess your predator, I guess, for lack of better words.
Right,
Kind
often
of
used with kidnappers, like, kind of
Well,
follow.
Yeah.
that's where it comes from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Hostages in Stockholm.
right.
yes, and you kind of become hostage in the want of things to work and like the want of that compassion and that love and what you're used to. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I like the concept of that.
Thank you, thank you.
Do you have another one you can share with us?
Yes.
Go for it.
So I have one that's kind of a lighthearted, more to kind of soften.
We like lighthearted. I like lighthearted stuff. 'Cause I'll read a poem. I was reading a poem. If I write a poem about my wife, I got to stop because I start crying. But anyway, let's have a light one.
Okay, so this one is called Cozy State of
State of
Mind. Everything has changed, but nothing is different. I still feel eased by our humbling silence, blithesome resting within you, compelled by the way you search for my soul and kiss my ripened wounds, how you talk to me through your eyes and touch me as if I have no body. I barely remember the time before you. Now I refuse to know a time without you. Everything has changed, but it's right where I want it to be. K.M. Weldon.
I like that.
Yeah, I definitely like that. I think my favorite line there is
Talk to me through your eyes.
that one.
Yeah.
Touch me as if I have no body.
Yeah. Man, we think
we're kind of on the same wavelength today.
We are.
Yes.
Well, it's just where we're, reacting to like a good poem.
Right, for sure. Thank you for sharing those with us. I like that how like the things have changed, but it's right where you want to be too. I like that it's that whole state of mind of that comfortableness, like that coziness. So I like that.
Yes, it kind of contrasts with Stockholm Box, where it's like it's the negative side of comfortability, and then here's that positive side of being comfortable.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for sharing those. Tell us a little more. I actually had a question about your book. Is there any background to the title?
Yeah, so Under the Influence of Gravity, I actually came up with this title. It stuck with me for 7 years of writing. It came from science class, and we were talking about the universe and everything like that. And that phrase, like under the influence of gravity, this is what happens, and all these scientific terms. And it clicked to me right then and there. I'm like, under the influence of gravity, like we fall in love, we, get hurt, we go through all these emotions and everything like that. And it's all on Earth, and, gravity might have to do with it as well. So it kind of stuck with me because it had like this poetic green to it. So yeah, that's kind of where that comes from.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think it does have a poetic. I just think it's a great title, especially like you said, with dealing with those forces or relationships and things that we interact with in life. Well, I know I picked up a Kindle version of the book earlier this week. Can you tell our audience where they can find it, how they can pick it up if they're interested in it?
Yeah, so it's pretty much anywhere you would purchase your book on online stores. You can get it from Amazon, Kindle, Apple Books, Barnes and Nobles, pretty much anywhere you get your online books from.
All right, sounds great. Please check her out. Pick up a copy of Under the Influence of Gravity and then give us some feedback and send KM some feedback on what you think of her new book.
Thank you.
All right, from there, we're going to move on with the episode a little bit. I've got just one note about our previous episode. Phil mentioned when he was talking about love poetry about Edgar Allan Poe writing Evangeline and it being a personal poem, but actually, we learned that that's actually Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
My bad. It's old man brain cramp. That's what that was.
It's okay. And then I've got a little bit of feedback. This is from episode 7. This is from James G. Just listen to episode 7 of You're the Poet. Evolving nicely, enjoyable. Thank you, James. Also, I've got some feedback on episode 7 from Mariah S. I love your dad's ability to just write a poem first thing in the morning, jot one down. And Mary, oh my gosh, I love them both, but mostly I love how brave she was to share the first poem and then relift us with her second poem. So thank you for sharing that feedback. I'd like to send a note out to our guest. If you want to give us some feedback, please respond to one of our podcast links. Find us on Facebook and comment. Shoot us an email at host@you'rethepoet.com and just let us know what you think about the podcast. Please share it. Please like it. Please spread the word as we try to build a community here. And if you're interested in being a guest on You're the Poet, check out a couple episodes and then shoot us an email. All right. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Phil, thank you.
Anytime.
KM, thank you for being our guest today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, guys. Goodbye.